There's something unsettling about how often we treat belief as a virtue. Not just any belief, but belief without evidence. In many places around the world, that kind of faith is still considered noble. It's praised, protected, even expected. But what happens when belief becomes so untouchable that it can't be questioned? What kind of society do we build when the most celebrated ideas are the ones that don't need to prove themselves? This isn't about attacking people. It's about asking a simple but uncomfortable question. What are the consequences of placing faith above reason? In modern society, we like to think we've come a long way, that science, progress, and open thinking are driving the future. And in many ways, that's true. Technology evolves, medicine improves, space telescopes map galaxies billions of light years away. Yet even in this era of knowledge, large swaths of humanity still cling to beliefs that originated before we understood germs, gravity, or the structure of the brain. That's not just a cultural relic, it's a social force. Faith still shapes laws, policies, education, and individual choices in ways that often go unnoticed or unchallenged. Take education. In some school systems, children are taught creationism as science, not in a comparative religion class, but in the same breath as evolution. Not because of evidence, but because of faith. Textbooks are rewritten to avoid offending religious doctrine. Scientific facts are watered down. Teachers walk on eggshells. And the message that sends? That belief should never be made uncomfortable, even if it's wrong. Then there's healthcare. Religious beliefs still interfere with basic medical decisions, from denying contraception and abortion access to rejecting life-saving treatments for children in favor of prayer. In some hospitals, policies are shaped not by medical ethics, but by theological codes. A doctor might know what's best for the patient, but if the doctrine disagrees, hands get tied. Real lives are affected, not because of a lack of options, but because of allegiance to invisible rules. Now think about laws. In many countries, legislation is still heavily influenced by scripture. Not ancient laws still on the books, but modern efforts to ban behaviors based on religious morality. Who people can love, what they can wear, what they can say, what they can do with their own bodies, all still subject to belief systems that claim authority without needing evidence. And when belief writes the rules, those who don't believe still get punished. But this isn't just about systems, it's also about minds. Faith, by definition, discourages doubt. And doubt, in a healthy society, is essential. Doubt drives inquiry. It fuels discovery. It forces us to ask hard questions and confront uncomfortable truths. But in a culture that treats questioning faith as disrespect, that process breaks down. Think about how often people are taught that doubt is weakness, that asking too many questions makes you dangerous, that not believing is a moral failure. This isn't harmless. It creates internal conflicts that last a lifetime. People learn to suppress curiosity. They feel guilt for thinking freely. They're taught to mistrust their own reasoning. And when that becomes normal, how do you grow? There's a psychological toll too. Studies show that people raised in highly religious environments often struggle with anxiety, shame, and fear, especially when they begin to question what they've been taught. Some even experience cognitive dissonance so strong it manifests physically: insomnia, panic attacks, depression. Not because they've done anything wrong, but because they're afraid of letting go of beliefs that don't hold up under scrutiny. And here's where things get even more complicated. Faith communities often provide people with real comfort, a sense of belonging, structure, tradition. And in times of crisis, that support can be deeply meaningful. But that doesn't change the content of the beliefs. It just shows that humans are social beings who need connection. The problem arises when that need is filled with systems that demand obedience over understanding. Look at how hard it is to leave a religion. For many, it means losing family, friends, even their jobs. In some countries, it can mean violence or death. That tells you everything you need to know about how fragile faith really is. If it were strong, it wouldn't need to punish people for walking away. Modern society faces problems that require real solutions. Climate change, inequality, disease, war. These aren't problems you can pray away. They require data, reason, and cooperation. But when belief systems teach that the end of the world is already written, or that suffering is part of a divine plan, or that non-believers are the enemy, how do you expect unity? Faith has the power to bring people together, yes, but it also has the power to divide, delay, and destroy. Not because people are evil, but because belief, when left unchecked, becomes bigger than truth. And here's another layer that often gets missed. Religion is no longer the only domain using faith-based thinking. You can see the same patterns in politics, conspiracy theories, wellness cults, even fandoms. People latch onto narratives that feel good and defend them like sacred truths. The structure of faith, blind trust, unquestioned authority, tribal loyalty, is alive and well, even outside religion. So, if we want a truly rational and ethical society, we need to move beyond just swapping one belief for another. We need to build systems that value skepticism, reward open thinking, and accept that being wrong is part of getting it right. That doesn't mean we become cynical. It means we become honest. Honest about what we know. Honest about what we don't. And most importantly, honest about why we believe the things we do. Because when belief is protected from criticism, it stops evolving. It becomes brittle. And a brittle society doesn't bend, it breaks. The most dangerous thing about blind faith isn't just that it can be wrong. It's that it refuses to care whether it is. And that's the shocking reality of faith in modern society.